Good morning, children. This is the continuation video, that is the third video of chapter 5, pollination and fertilization. In this video, we will discuss about the agents of cross pollination. For cross pollination, always an agent is required, and the commonest agents of cross pollination are of insect and wind. But some other agents are also there, namely certain animals, birds, then squirrels, bats, sometimes elephants, then through water. All these are the, so water in case of aquatic plants, all these are the agents of cross pollination. Major agents are of insect and wind. So each category, each of these flowers, whether it is carried through wind or water or by insect, they possess certain special characteristic features or adaptations. So let us see what are the features of insect pollinated flowers. Insect pollinated flowers are also known as entomophilous. Entomos means insect, phili means affinity towards insect. So the flowers which are carried or the pollination by insect. The flowers show these certain characteristic features, like the flowers are usually large in size. They are usually brightly colored to attract insect, usually emit scent for again attracting insect, and they produce nectar, which is also form the food for the insect. And normally the pollen grains are sticky or spiny in nature. For what? To enable the insect to, or the because of the stickiness or the spinous nature in on the body, insect's body, it can be attached and carried away easily. And most of the time the stigmatic region is also sticky. And in insect pollinated flower, the stigma is not hanging out from the flower. So these all are the special characteristic features. And also if the flower is small in size, like some like dahlia, marigold, etc., there the individual flowers are very small. So in such cases, the flower tend to be in clusters, in group, and make them conspicuous or visible. So these are the features. Then next one is wind pollinated flowers. Wind pollinated flowers are also known as anemophilous. Anemo means wind, phili means affinity. So the examples of such flowers are of maize, then grass flowers, all these are examples. What are the special features? The flowers are small. They are usually not brightly colored and often dull green in color. Most of the grass flowers, if you observe, you could see all those flowers are very small and they are dull in color, green colored. They do not produce any scent or nectar. If you smell a flower of paddy or wheat or any grass, then there is no scent at all. Whereas if you smell a rose or jasmine and all, that is very scented. But here they do not produce any scent, or nectar is also absent. And normally the stamens are long and hanging out of the flower and exposed to wind. The anthers are large and loosely attached to the filament. So anthers also, they are very large in size and loosely attached to the filament. It is to the slightest wind can be carried away the pollen grains, for that only. And such type of anthers are said to be versatile. Pollen produced in very large quantities to ensure pollination. They are produced in very large quantities. Pollen grains are usually light, dry and smooth so as to carry it away very easily by the wind. And the stigmatic regions are feathery and hanging out of the flower to trap the pollen grains. So all these are the characteristic features of wind pollinated flowers. The next one is water pollinated. It is also known as hydrophilous. So hydrophilous flowers. Hydro means water, phili means affinity again. The characteristic features are pollen grains are produced in large numbers. In some plants, the pollen grains have a specific gravity almost equal to that of water, so that it can reach or it can remain floating just below the surface of water till they meet the female flower. Sometimes it is for that. Then in some special cases, male flowers are such they float on the surface of water till they meet the female flowers. They are searching in search of female flowers. Till that time they float on the surface. Example, Vallisneria. Then sometimes the flowers are pollinated by birds. Then it is known as ornithophily. And some example, Bignonia cana, etc. Sometimes it is by elephants. Then it is known as elephophily. Example, Rafflesia. Then here in elephophily is found in Rafflesia. The flowers are very large and found on the ground level. So when the elephant move, it is attached on the when it is step on the flower, it is get attached to the feet of the elephant and it is carried away. Then other than this, these all are the nature we can say. Other than this, we ourselves can produce pollination. Means we can collect pollen grains and we can dust that pollen grains, or we can transfer that on the stigma of the flower. Then it is known as artificial pollination. And this artificial pollination is done in horticulture, in the nurseries and all, to produce hybrid varieties or new varieties of plants. We perform artificial pollination. So some of the examples now come to the examples of wind pollinated and insect pollinated flower. Let us see. So before coming into the example, artificial pollination, some of the terms, emasculation, bagging, etc. are there. In artificial pollination, we have to select a flower which should be of, or we can have to consider that one as a female flower, and we have to collect the pollen grains from another one flower or of the same flower. And here, so we are doing artificial cross pollination. For that, what we have to do, we have to remove the stamens of that flower, and the removal of the stamen or the anthers we remove from the young condition, and that process is known as emasculation. Removal of anthers in young flowers is known as emasculation. That is for what purpose? To prevent self-pollination. And after that, these flowers are we cover that one in a plastic bag. That is known as bagging. Later, they pollinate these flowers with the desirable quality pollen grains, and the artificial pollination is done, and this is known as artificial crossing also. Plant breeders are doing this one for in horticulture and all. Here this technique they use, and also scientists for producing new varieties of plants. This artificial breeding is there. Then some examples of pollination and insect pollinated flower, that is example is sweet pea. Sweet pea, all of you, I think you know sweet pea, which is now it is off season, otherwise we could have brought sweet pea. So here the sweet pea, the flower is having three different types of petals. The large petal is known as standard petal. Inside that, smaller than that, that is known as wing petal, and the innermost petal, it is like a keel, and that is known as keel petal. So there are three different types of petals are there. Standard petal, a large one, then wing petal and keel petal. So when the insect come and alight on the conspicuous, means visible one, that is the large one showing standard petal, and they thrust its tongue towards the in search of nectar. So with this struggle, what happens? The wing petal of the flower are depressed, and also the keel petal, which along with the keel petal. So inside this one only the male and male reproductive and female reproductive inside the keel petal. So when it is that thrust is produced here, so that the stamen and stigma may be touched by the body, under surface of the body of the insect. Then if the insect might have visited earlier another one flower on the insect's body, pollen grains might be there. That one will be pollinated on the stigmatic region. The same way, when it is moved from this flower to another flower, some of the pollen grains from this flower might have carried through the body, and when they visit another flower, pollination might have happened. Okay, the next one is wind pollinated flower. Example here, maize plant. Maize plant is shown. Here two types of flowers are there. Male flowers, male inflorescence it is, and this is female inflorescence. So here you can see from the female inflorescence the feathery stigma is coming out. Feathery stigma is coming out. And this one is tassel, that is the male inflorescence. Female inflorescence is known as cob. So when the pollen grains are carried, it is wind pollinated, so it is very small, and these anthers are loosely attached to the filament, versatile anthers they have, and the pollen grains are blown by the wind and may fall on the feathery stigma, and the stigma receive the pollen grains and pollination takes place. This is wind pollinated flower. Then after pollination, what happens? After pollination, pollen grains germinate and fertilization. Next process is of fertilization, and this fertilization we will continue in the next video. Okay, so go through this one thoroughly and understand. Okay.